In the previous video, we took a look at how to actually set up our account. So anything from the sign up process to first signing in to even going over the UI. Now that we've done that, it's time to actually create our new environment. So our environment is going to be the heart and soul of what Argonaut is doing. And that environment is going to consist of a Kubernetes cluster. Now, in this case, we are going to spin up an EKS cluster or Elastic Kubernetes Service cluster inside of Amazon. And not only are we going to do that, but we're also going to set up some domain configurations. So first things first, let's go ahead and click on the Create Environment button. And then let's give this a name. We'll go ahead and we'll call this Production. Then we're going to specify our region. Now you can use any region inside of AWS. Next, we're going to choose our instance type. Now, of course, the environment name does say Production. However, this is a dev environment, so you don't get charged a ton. Go ahead and just use a T3 small or another smaller size, but of course you can use any instance type. Next, we'll choose our capacity, so we'll say 50 gigs. And then you have instance class, so you can either do on demand or you could do spot instances. And then finally, you have your node count. So Kubernetes does recommend between 3 and 5 nodes for a production level environment. Now again, because this is a test environment, we can go ahead and just change this to 1 if we want to. However, just do keep in mind for some Kubernetes knowledge later on that you should always have between 3 and 5 nodes running. And as we can see up top, when we create the environment, it installs all the essentials like the Cert Manager and Prometheus. So let's go ahead and click on that Create Environment button. Now, as we can see, the environment creation itself could take about 20 minutes, and you may be ultimately wondering what's happening. Well, if we go ahead and if we click on the logs here, we'll be able to see in just a second that it's actually kicking off, not only generating and creating a kube config, but the code that spins up our entire environment. Now, our environment consists of VPCs and subnets and route tables and the Kubernetes cluster. So how is that kind of all done? Well, it's actually done via Terraform. Yes, so this entire process is done via Terraform. And if we look at our screen here, we can see some of the TF modules going on in the background. So with that being said, again, this is going to take roughly 20 minutes or so. So what I'd say is pause the video, go grab a coffee, maybe a snack, and we'll be back shortly here. All right, everybody, and our environment is officially up. Now, one thing that I did want to show in the logs is, as I said, this all is created, this entire environment via Terraform. And luckily, one of the really cool things about Argonaut is the logs. And the reason why is because, as we all know as engineers, logs are super crucial in understanding what's happening in the background, especially in an automated platform, because we have no idea what's actually happening if things are happening from an automated perspective unless we can actually see it, and we can see that right here. So all of these logs literally show exactly what's being created via Terraform. So if I go back to the environments, let's talk about the domain configuration. Now, every environment has a load balancer, and this load balancer is right here, and it's just a load balancer in AWS. So I'm in my AWS console here. I'm just going to go to EC2, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down. This is our worker node, by the way, running that Kubernetes worker node, because remember, we just picked 1 when we were setting up our environment. Now, if I go to load balancer here, we can see that we have our load balancer right here. Now, if we want to set up domain configuration, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Route 53. Then we're going to go to hosted zones. And then as you can see, I have this domain here called simplyanengineer.com. This is a domain that I own. So I'm going to go right here. And now I can go ahead and I can create a record. So if I go back and I click on the load balancer, notice here how we're going to actually be creating a CNAME. Now, if you're not familiar with what a CNAME is, it's essentially an alias to your A record. So that alias could be, anything that you want to call it. Now, notice here it says CNAME *env name.mydomain.com. So what does that mean? Well, it means that for the load balancer, this will be a simple certificate provisioning and service endpoint grouping. And what does that actually mean? Well, it essentially means that it wants a wildcard mapping. So if I go to my hosted zones here and I click create record, I can give this record a name. So for example, I'll say production arg, and then it'll be .simplyandengineer.com. Now, as you can see, we have a bunch of valid characters right here. So what I can do is I can go ahead and I can add that right there. But if we go back here, just want to point something out again really quick, because this could be a common misconception. As you can see, there's this star here, which is essentially a wildcard. So what we want to do is we want to add that wildcard for our environment name, and we could even take off arg at the end. That way it fully matches up to our environment. Now, if I go to record type, I'm going to hit CNAME. Then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to copy my load balancer. I'm going to pop that in for the value. Now we can go ahead and we can click create record. And now we officially have a CNAME set up for our load balancer and our domain configuration. And with that, that's how you can set up your domain configuration and your environment using Argonaut. Thank you so much for watching.